Now, in your book, again, you sketched out the kind of system we've just discussed, and you said that to the degree there are others who don't have health care under the system, there should be charity, but purely voluntary charity. What if there is no charity?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. If you go back to a time in the United States when wealth was much smaller, and even recently, try to find the number of instances of people in obvious need who've been simply left to go derelict. It hasn't happened. There's a funny causal relationship. If you put in mandatory programs, what happens is nobody sees the need for voluntary assistance. And the secret for success in this state of creating a huge voluntary health care system in the 19th century was to give every institution the right to turn away anybody for good reason, bad reason, or no reason at all, because that's the only legal regime that will get people to come into the charitable business. And so I think, in effect, if you work this thing correctly, you will have gaps in coverage, to be sure. But don't think that you don't have gaps in coverage under the current system, which are far broader and far more comprehensive than anything that we've seen before.
And does government have a responsibility to step in to plug those gaps?
Yes, it has a responsibility to get out of the way so that the kinds of regulations that make it impossible for people to go to a Walmart in order to get health care provided by a business that knows what it's doing will not be blocked by a series of entry restrictions of one kind or another. It has the responsibility to remove programs like HIPAA, which spend billions of dollars trying to ensure an insane sense of privacy which nobody would want to choose in the voluntary market. It has a responsibility to think again about the mandates with respect to medical malpractice and health care, where you force people to buy a level of protection through the civil justice system that they will not want to buy in a voluntary market. None of these things exist in Switzerland. And so if you really want to make these comparisons, you can't cherry pick one issue to the exclusion of others. You actually have to go down and look at the whole system. And you know, even in Canada, their malpractice system, 10% the cost of ours, their level of performance about exactly the same. We're wasting 90% of our money on this thing, and as far as I'm concerned, if we started to unravel that, we would solve many of the access problems which were created by our own regulatory ingenuity, which somehow or other always manages to backfire.